just as a refresher, Orico sent us a few of these nifty USB 3 hubs, and we're going to go ahead and put them through their paces. This is going to be relatively simple. We're just going to use crystal disk mark for some raw numbers from one of the flash drives. We're going to get some native numbers first. We're going to plug in one drive directly to the laptop here, which is a ThinkPad P50, and we're going to test it. Then we're going to test it attached to one of the hubs. We're going to start with the little one, and then we're going to move to these large ones. And what I really want to see here is I want to see if there's a difference based on the location of the drive in regards to its performance. So we're actually going to shift this here so that we can see the drive, and I'm going to go ahead and start recording the screen so you can see any data that gets collected there. So we can see the drive here. This is the first drive we're going to go ahead and test, and I'm going to go ahead and give it a clean format before we do anything on it. I don't think I've got any important data here. I know it's difficult to read at this point. This is the 256 gig Mushkin Impact that was sent in for review several years ago at this point. It has been a nearly and daily use drive for me. Fantastic little drive. Still quick as ever. So we're just going to open up File Explorer. That's not good. There we go. We just need a second. Yeah, that's all crap. Okay, so we'll just run a quick format. And let's go ahead and open up Crystal Disk Mark. Alright, we're starting with drive F. That is this drive. While that's running, I'm going to grab the other drive that we'll be using, and hopefully we just need two. This is the Mushkin USB 3 SSD that was sent in for review. Off the top of my head, the label has come off long ago. This was the Ventura Ultra. Looks like we're seeing about a 300 meg per second read, so I might end up throwing another drive into the mix. USB-C to C. Alright. So for another drive, if we do end up using it, we've got this ADATA SSD. This was also a 240 gig device, I believe. And we did a review on this. It's performed fairly well. And I've got the USB A to C cable, and we'll go ahead and test it first before we get too far ahead of ourselves as well. So let's go ahead. And plug it in. This will also potentially give us a chance to take advantage of the presence of 2 ports. I think I will fully populate the 7-port hub and just see if there's a performance difference when it's full, with and without the additional power. I'm going to go ahead and stop this. Really, it's the sequential numbers we even care about. So 298.4 read, 156 write on the impact here. And this is why I almost never use the Ultra, is it's actually too big to fit next to the A data. So we're going to test the A data real quick. I'm going to keep these on the screen, and I'm going to name this Impact Native. And we're just going to open up Crystal Disk Mark again. And drive H here is this A data device. Certainly taking its sweet time. I wonder if I accidentally grabbed a 2.0 cable. It looks like I did indeed. Fortunately, I have more than one cable. This is probably an old charging cable that I grabbed by accident. Plug this back in. Here's our A data. We're still volume H. And let's rerun those sequential tests with the hopefully 3.0 cable. There we go. That's what we wanted to see. 440 read. Oh, 439.8 read. And we ought to see a relatively impressive write speed as well. There we go. You know, I think we might actually use the A data drive to measure the performance on the hub due to its closer approximation to the peak of USB 3's potential. Alright, so now we've got the Ventura Ultra in, and we're just going to format it as well. There we go. It was still detecting the old drive geometry. Gotta love it. Alright. We'll go ahead and name this. And while this is running, we're going to name it. Alright, and it looks like just like the A data, we're seeing a pretty healthy read speed, but if we remember the review for the Ventura Ultra, it was not super fantastic on the right side. This is a very old approach to building an SSD on a stick. They've still got a SandForce controller in here, and it gets miserably warmer than any of the external SSDs I've worked with recently. But it's still fully functional and still a valid piece of hardware to test things like this. Alright, so we've got a USB 3 cable. Which, don't we just love, there we go, how non-reversible those are. And we're going to plug in the 4-port hub. And the cable's going to fight with us a little bit. And try and take it out of frame. There we go. So here's our 4-port hub. We've got the A-data drive, and we're going to plug it into the first port here, and we're going to open up a fresh copy of Crystal Disk Mark and run it. No, stop. I didn't mean to run the whole thing. I just want the sequential test. Alright, and 427.8, 430. Alright, so quick check tells me that we're seeing 98% of the speed that we saw on the read side through the 4-port hub. That is fairly good, honestly. Variance of 1.9%, as the math works out, would normally be chalked up due to running the same test twice in a row. Looks like there's a little bit larger hit on the right side. So we're looking at 390.7, 3, 96%. So we're still, or sorry, 96.8%. So we're losing about, well, just shy of 5% there. Not even 5%, just shy of, or just over 3%. Once again, generally within the accepted margin of error. I could run this test 3 or 4 times and get numbers all in that same ballpark, with or without the hub. So, seeing that's good. And we want to go ahead and we're just going to open up a couple of copies here and plug in 3 drives. And test a few things. So right now, I've got 3. In fact, I'm going to load up 4 drives. I've got my heavy-duty waterproof Lexar flash drive here, just for a 4th device. And I'm going to go ahead and grab drive H again. We're going to see if there's any measurable performance impact just by USB device not recognized. So what that tells me is that these are all relatively high power devices. These SSDs both have controllers. And it sounds like we ran out of power before we plugged in the Lexar. Although we did so in such a way that it didn't crash. So I'm going to go ahead and now connect the micro USB power connector and then plug in the Lexar drive. And it picked it up this time. Alright, I'm going to stop that because I didn't mean to run the full suite. I really just meant to run the sequential. But what I saw here was good. It was that the lack of power, which caused us not to recognize the 4th drive, which, keep in mind, normal USB flash drives, and I'll try this in a second, I should be able to plug in all 4 and it wouldn't break a sweat. Really, it's the additional power for 2 of these being SSDs and one of these being a very high performance flash drive that just called for more than the single USB 3.0 port is designed to deliver. But anyway, the second I attached supplemental power, everything was good. So we're just going to validate that we don't need supplemental power if we're plugging in normal things. So I'm going to disconnect the supplemental power. And I've got a couple of these. These are WD Easy Share drives. These came free with some external hard drives I bought. And 1, 2, and then well, that didn't detect any of those. Is there something wrong with my Easy Share drives? Which is entirely feasible. Nope, that one was detected as utilities. Did I just not give it enough time? That one was detected as a Windows installer. I've also got a couple of these are bog standard Micro Center drives. These are all 32 gig drives. I'm just going to go ahead and double check that nobody's gotten bent. That used to be a Windows installer, because sometimes these do get bent and damaged floating around in my laptop case. And that is still some kind of Windows installer. Alright, so the hub's back. Plug in an Easy Share drive. Plug in an Easy Share drive. Well, now that's quite confusing. USB works in the hub. And that one doesn't. Although these two hubs look very different, they are, from a layout standpoint, identical. This hub has 3 ports attached to the primary USB 3, and then the 4th port of the first hub chip feeds the next 4 ports. The same exact thing is going on in here. We've got 2 hub chips. We come in, we hit a hub chip, we feed 3 ports, then hub chip A feeds hub chip B, and then we feed the next 4 ports. For ease of use and just particularly where things are, I'm going to use a linear one. The reason for that is it fits on screen relatively well here. So I'm going to plug it in. And we're going to throw the ADATA SSD in on our first port. And we're going to fire up a new copy of Crystal Disk Mark. And Windows is taking its sweet time to recognize the SSD this time around, which is odd. It sounds like my laptop is... No, we've just got OBS ticking around there in the background. Huh. You know, I'm suspecting that this USB 3 cable I found in my drawer here may not be as good as I want it to be. So, in the vein of being fair, I've got one of the sealed USB 3 cables that came with these hubs. And let's just open this up. And plug it in. Alright, hub's lit up. Plug in our ADATA drive. And nothing happened. There we go. I wonder if something's wrong with that USB port on my laptop now. That's right. Crystal Disk Mark needs to be launched when the drive that you are attempting to test is plugged in. And we're going to run our sequential test. And we're going to call this one a data close. $429.5. So that's a little bit slower than we saw before. But, oh, 430.3, I really should have let it finish running the test. Alright, so there is our sequential numbers for it. Close to. And now, we're going to plug it in all the way at the other end. The reason we're plugging it in all the way at the other end is to guarantee we're on the other hub chip. Same drive. $425.9, which gives us 96.8% of our performance. Hey, we didn't mean to run the full test. So what that tells me is that the impact of the second chip is roughly the same 2% that the first chip was. Overall, a more expensive hub may have used a single chip solution that doesn't cost additional performance. I believe this particular Orico hub is something like $30. Sorry, this particular hub is $22. So you could buy a more expensive hub and potentially get a single chip solution. Although, quite honestly, without opening up the device and looking at the internals, you're going to be left doing the same exact testing I did here to figure something like that out. Now, what I do want to do, since we know we're on a good cable now, we had some issues with the 4-port earlier, and I think that was caused by a bad cable. In fact, I want to plug as many devices in as I can. Alright, Windows recognized that one. And I'm going to provide the supplemental power because I knew that we're going to need it with a completely full hub. And I want to see if there is a negative performance impact from simply being full. And we're going to use some of our high-powered devices here. We're going to put the Ventura and the impact in. We're going to use, I've got a couple of these 32 gigabyte Micro Center flash drives. Everybody's lighting up, everybody's blinking, and everyone appears to be detected, which is fantastic. I mean, I plugged in 7 USB devices, I've got one port. I honestly expected to see some kind of bus error based on the controller in my laptop not having enough USB 3 endpoints by the time I got here. So we're going to open up Crystal Disk Mark one more time. And we're going to grab drive F. And we're going to run it. And I'm pretty sure that I hit the wrong button, so we're going to stop it. Unfortunately, I don't have any more footage of the actual testing that I ran on these drives. There had been an incident earlier in the day where the charger for my Zcam E1 became damaged, and I was operating off of battery power, and I didn't even realize that. So we lost cameras just after about 40 minutes of recording, since I did end up speeding up about a 10-minute section. The end result and the big finale was that the 7-port hub performed exactly the same, fully loaded, as long as it was provided with sufficient power, as it did with one drive attached to it. And for a hub that used micro USB for the supplemental power, that was an excellent thing to see. Overall, I'm very impressed with these hubs. I would recommend them to anyone looking for a USB hub, and considering that their price points are ballpark no different than what I usually see hubs in their sizes listed for, I see no reason to really go with another drive other than from a pure aesthetic standpoint. Transparent cases are very cool, but they're definitely kind of a retro look. Everyone had those clear phones in the 90s. And although I love being able to see what's going on inside a product from a viewer standpoint, I understand the attractiveness of some of the aluminum case designs, and that the metals may simply feel like a more premium design, even though if you were to open them up, you'd very likely find the same exact hub chips driving them.